Hey, it's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, and we're going live again for another slice of social media pie here on LinkedIn. We're live on Facebook. We are live on, Facebook. YouTube is the third one. There's 3 channels we're live on right now. So I just want to say good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever you're watching us from wherever in the world. And I want to welcome all of you, and especially my very VIP special guest joining me here today, Monica. Hey, Monica, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Brenda. How are you?
I am doing great. I am really looking forward to the conversation here today, guys. And I want to invite any of you who's watching us today, if you could please take a moment and just comment below. When you comment, it lets us know who's watching us on the session. And it also kind of helps me to test out the AV. So I put a little ticker that's kind of running below to remind you. So just comment wherever you're watching, if it's on LinkedIn or Instagram, actually LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, I should say. Just leave us a brief comment, and that helps us to know that the broadcast is actually going live. Sometimes it's like a ketchup bottle. I need to kick the bottom of it to make the show kind of keep going. And your comments help me to kind of test out the technology. So drop those comments in, and I'll pull your comments up on screen as well. So let us know where in the world you're watching from, or where in the household, right, you're watching from. And I'm really looking forward to the chat here today. And Monica, you and I, we've known each other for what, maybe 2.5, 3 years or so now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. What, 3 years, I want to say.
And now we know each other from an organization that's now called Together Digital. Back in the day, it was called Women in Digital, I think, and we renamed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember the first meeting I went to was when the founder, Elena, came to, it was Bamboo Detroit downtown, and there was a big kickoff event, and I went home that night, and I was so inspired, and I joined. But I think you were actually already on the organization. If you were, I think, serving on the board at that time too, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So we met there, and we were both board members together there back in the day, and continue to be affiliated with the board because Monica is our city champion for the Detroit chapter. So shout out to Monica for stepping into that leadership role, and for any fellow Together Digital members that might be watching us here today. Before we get into the conversation, guys, I want to have ask Monica if you could take a few minutes, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump right in.
Yeah, sure thing, Brenda. I have about 10 years of digital marketing experience, kind of in the agency world here in Metro Detroit. Over the last few years, I've kind of tapped into health and fitness, and I have a few side hustles as well. I am a certified group fitness instructor. I teach cycling at The Edge Fitness in Rochester and in Sterling Heights. And I teach at LA Fitness as well in a couple of locations. I'm also a rowing coach for a new studio called Rowhouse in Rochester Hills. If you're familiar with the area, it's across from Crittenton Hospital. Mm-hmm. And I'm also an independent representative for a health and wellness company called Arbonne, and a athleisure wear company called Zaya Active, which I'm really excited about.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times, like you were going through, I'm like, I knew about the fitness stuff because I follow you on Instagram, and I see the photos, and I saw the photos that you did with the new rowing studio. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I was aware of the Arbonne, but I was aware of the Zaya because I've actually bought some pants. I should have worn them today. I didn't, because you called it, what was it, athleisure wear? Did I get the word right?
Athleisure wear, yeah. So
what does that mean?
It's not just leggings and sports bras and items to wear when you work out and get sweaty. It's also encompassing of, cozy sweaters and joggers and outerwear. It's all kinds of things that, I don't know, it's not formal like work clothes. Right. You're not wearing slacks, you're not wearing button downs all the time, especially not in COVID times anymore. So, we have a lot of kind of stretchy fabrics and kind of breathable fabrics as well that could go from a workout to, running errands around town or going to a meeting. You can dress up some of the athleisure wear so that you can be presentable on camera too. So,
and I got to just interrupt and say on this too, Monica, I'm like, you make it sound so like it was well planned out, in terms of what you were. I mean, literally, you guys, most mornings I'm putting on my yoga pants, and most mornings I'm not doing yoga unless you count at the points in the days where I take a deep sigh because I'm exasperated with this whole house, like. But there are some days, and there's a group that I'm a member of, and we talk about doing different, we have personal goals and we have work goals, and one of our personal goals is like doing something for ourselves. And sometimes it's like doing yoga, and we'll say, if you lay on a yoga mat and just lay there and take deep breaths, that's actually yoga, right? It's taking deep breaths. But
Right.
I have to admit, I mean, sometimes it's just like wearing the comfy pants. It's much more comfortable than having to wear a suit, because I'm not going out to meeting with anybody, or even like jeans. I'm wearing jeans today, and I'm like, they're kind of like, I'd rather be in more comfortable clothes. So I would have to imagine you're getting a lot of business from people right now, Monica, like from people like me who are just like, I want to be more comfortable, but I don't want to wear my pajamas all day long, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that happening right now. So joggers are a really hot item right now because they're comfy, but they don't feel like a sweatpant.
Mm-hmm. So. A little bit more stylish. Well, just a little bit of a aside there, guys, before we jump into the conversation. I'm sure there's other people that are wearing yoga pants at home right now and you're not doing yoga too. I know who you are, because it's not just me. I know it's not just me. But what we want to do is we want to shift gears and jump into the conversation today. So Monica and I have been talking a little bit a while back about, bringing her on the show. And part of the reason I invited Monica, you guys, is first of all, I love shining the spotlight on people in my network. And Monica is such a deserving person of that spotlight, because she is such a positive energy that's always radiating from her. She's such a warm, kind person. And I just really want to help and shine the spotlight on people like Monica and other people like you who may be in a career transition. And, Monica has really, you just continue to impress me so much, Monica. And I'm even learning more about you on the call today, all the different projects that you're working on. You're not just sitting on the couch and waiting for the unemployment checks to arrive. You're keeping active in your job search while doing some other activities. And you kind of coined this phrase, unenjoyment. And the topic today is finding what brings you joy during unemployment. So let's get this started. So first of all, I got to ask, unenjoyment, what is that? Did you make that up, or did you hear that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, my brother said it one day and it stuck with me. So, a little bit about kind of my background with agency life. What in the agency life, a lot of times, it's account based, or, budgets get cut. If you lose some of those accounts, then, a lot of jobs kind of get washed away as well. So I've worked in a combination of different environments, in-house marketing teams, agencies, contracts, freelance, things like that. Yeah. And I've also worked in automotive, healthcare, travel, entertainment. I've worked in a lot of different areas. But in an agency, when some of those accounts have to pull back on their budgets, salaries get cut, and so do people. So I've been unemployed and 4 times in the last 10 years. Yeah. So I've kind of gotten, it's not a new thing to me, unemployment, but I've kind of learned along the way what to do and what not to do. And COVID aside, like, that's the nature of the business sometimes, is, when you get into advertising, you get into digital marketing, or agencies and things like that, it's common that you might be unemployed at some point in your career. But for others, this might be their first time ever being unemployed.
Yeah. And what I love, so, I mean, you can already tell, you guys, Monica's such a positive person, and she's like, it's part of the business. I mean, it's part of the business cycle. And especially if you're in a type of a fluid type of a dynamic environment, like an agency environment, where your business is based on clients that you're booking. And when some of those clients pull back or they adjust their needs, then decisions are being made about employees and agency employees. And, Monica, I heard you say, 4 times in the past, was it 10 years you said?
Yeah.
So you've been around this before, and, you're kind of like, it sounds like you're just kind of rolling with it now, and you've learned some things that along the way that, you're hopefully going to be sharing with us today too.
Yes. So what unenjoyment is, I mean, I feel like when people go on unemployment, they feel trapped in that relentless job search, or feel like they can't do anything or go anywhere because it costs too much money. Like, unemployment is jail, right? You're kind of locked in your house and you're locked to your computer, just kind of going to town on job searching and networking and things like that. But there's such a huge benefit to actually having the time to do things you love to do, to find new things that you might like to do, and just improve on your quality of life in general in this time of uncertainty.
It's interesting that you say it's in jail. And one of the terms I've used to describe when you're in this position of being unemployed, there's this black hole, the black hole of the job search, and you apply to job upon job and you really don't get any responses back, or you might get automated, and can be kind of like soul sucking, right?
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is you could let that overtake you, that black hole, or you can choose to kind of look around you and say, well, gosh, I have some extra time. What else can I be doing right now that I couldn't do before, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And what I've learned from you, Brenda, I mean, we've been following each other for a long time. Like, unemployment is temporary, right? Mm-hmm. Unemployment is not a measure of your worth. Unemployment is not a time to get down on yourself or go into that black hole. It's a time to do some self-discovery as well and hit the reset button. Even earlier this week on who was it? What was the name? That girl's name? Heather? I think. Kristen?
Heather Lynn, yeah, who I interviewed earlier this week. You're talking about, yeah, Heather.
Yeah, that was like a perfect segue into this conversation too. She talked about the importance of taking time to figure things out now that you have the space in your brain to do it.
Right. And
I always find that, like, when there's job responsibilities to do, and then you got at-home life, and now a lot of people doing homeschooling and things like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on up here, but without having the job responsibilities to kind of take up your day or suck up your day, you can kind of do some other things. So it is a positive experience. You can make it a positive experience being unemployed or unenjoyed. So
yeah, but it has to be a conscious decision that you're making, right? And I think is it a mindset? Is it, I mean, because there's probably people watching that are like, they're unemployed right now and they're in this funk and they're feeling kind of like frozen, like they can't do anything other than look for a job. And maybe you're getting them to open up those possibilities in their mind right now. But is it a conscious choice? Is it a process? How do we get there?
It's a conscious choice, I would say. I've in the past, in some of my other unemployment stints, I was COVID cut in March, so I'm currently unemployed at the moment. But I was also recently unemployed before then. I was unemployed at the end of 2018. And one of my biggest regrets was not spending time with family. So I was working on developing new skills, which is great. Awesome. I was doing the LinkedIn trainings. I was doing the webinars and networking and things like that. But I was doing it all day long, day long. And the days would just fly by. I would forget to eat. I would forget that, oh, hey, maybe I should have gone and done a workout. Oh, let me just get this application in. And, it just kind of wore me down. But also, like, my uncle was sick at the time. So he was diagnosed with lymphoma at the end of 2017. And he had passed in early 2019. And my biggest regret was that I didn't go and spend more time with him while I had the time to do it. So that was a big learning experience for me, especially going into this next, this current unemployment time. So just like I'm spending more time with my grandparents and I'm spending more time with friends and trying to connect, with COVID. It's kind of hard sometimes.
Right.
But kind of trying to stay connected with friends and family too. So, but this time I chose to do more for myself and I tapped into that health and fitness arena and started to build a community there. I spent time with my loved ones and I kind of try and find some new things that I could fall in love with.
So, I mean, what I hear you saying too, I feel like fitness has probably always been a part of your life. Is that a fair statement to say?
Yes, I've been a lifelong athlete. I was a swimmer in high school, a rower in college, and I teach cycling and now getting back into rowing. So,
So was it ever in your mind, did you think, I'm going to be a professional swimmer? This is what I'm going to be for a living. Was that ever an option, or was it always, this is something I enjoy to keep me healthy and keep me active? And then this is the school part, which was, or career, it's different. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. It was always just a hobby.
But for me, like ever since I've known you, Monica, you've always been very active, and not just as a participant in activities. Like I remember one of the first times we met at a Starbucks. I think it was at Partridge Creek.
Yeah.
And it was maybe one of our first one-on-one meetings, not like we had met before then, but it was our first one-on-one meetings. And we met at a Starbucks, and I think you had just come from a class or you were going to a class. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, what are you taking? You're like, well, I'm leading it. And I'm not sure if it was it a rowing class at the time, or what was it? Do you remember that?
Cycle. So I've been a cycle instructor for 5 years, and I'll give you a little story about that too.
Yeah, so, please do go ahead. Yeah.
I was unemployed, or I was laid off from my agency job in 2015. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that like I never thought I would do was just to get in the car and go somewhere, mm-hmm. or like take a solo trip. And I was like, well, let's make this worth my while. What can I do? And I've always had this like thing in the back of my brain of, hey, I really love cycling. Mm-hmm. I love to, have the accountability of, being in class and having to lead class so I actually get there, right? Yeah. I just don't like fluff off on my workout. So, and I like to connect with people. So I was like, okay, well, let me look at this certification website. And I found the next session or the next certification course, and it was in Boston, Massachusetts. So wow. I purchased the course. I packed my bags. I put my mountain bike in the car because I was like, oh, maybe I'll go for a bike ride.
That's cool.
And I went and drove to Boston the next day.
Wow, that's great. What a cool experience. So, I mean, were you like in shock, like, I can't believe I'm doing this? Or were you just like, I'm so excited I'm doing this? What was your mindset at that time?
Oh, I was so excited. I was like, I can finally just go somewhere and not have to ask for PTO time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You don't have to ask the boss for vacation or try to sneak out early on a Friday or anything. Like, you just leave. It's in some aspects, it's very liberating once you get to that point. But before that, you're like, it's a little jarring. Like, I can't believe I don't have to ask anybody for this, right?
Yeah. I told Jonathan, my fiance, I told him, I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to get out for a couple of days. I'm going to go get my spinning certification. It's in Boston. I'll see you like on Monday or Tuesday or whenever.
Yeah. And whenever. Was he like,
I literally just said,
like, you're what? Was he like shocked or?
he was shocked. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I called my parents. I called my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm going into Canada. I'm not going to be available for the next 5 hours. And he's like, what? What are you doing? Right. I was like, I'm going to Boston. I'm going to go get certified to teach cycling classes. He's like, wait, what?
Right. Like, okay, and I want to interrupt you there too, because you said you went through Canada. So for those people who aren't watching, Monica and I are both in Michigan. And if you've looked at the map of the United States, it's probably actually faster to drive through Canada to get to Boston than it is to go all the way around like Pennsylvania. And I don't know what else you go through, New York probably to get up there, right? To go in that direction. So it's a shorter drive to go through Canada, but then you got to have your, I don't think we can travel right now to Canada, but you had to have your passport probably at the time to make the trip through, right? And then explain to them where you were going, right? When you're driving through.
Yeah.
Wow. How fun. So you got your spinning certification, or what spinning certification was what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's very cool. Well, I love the adventuresome nature of you. And I love that you just kind of leaned into it and embraced it. And I mean, what I'm hearing too, Monica, is you're not just like dabbling in your hobbies, doing things, you're taking initiative to lead things. Whether it's as an instructor or selling Arbonne products or selling Zaya, I mean, you're doing things that are not just as an active participant as a consumer, but you're actually doing things that are creating different maybe revenue streams for you and also creating some joy, right? To help others, to help and give it back, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that I've always kind of done. I've never been the type of person that just has one job it's just instilled in me. My dad was the same way. He always had a couple of things going on. So I naturally had a couple of things going on all the time. So
that's good. But you're always thinking of what's next. And then you're always having, whether you want to call it a fallback or a side revenue stream, side hustle, there's a lot of different words for it. It sounds like you've always kind of had that. You've had a couple things that have been going on the sides for you.
Yes. Yes.
Very cool. So what advice do you have for people watching today that are kind of like, I could never do that, or I wouldn't know what that is that I would do? I mean, what advice do you have for people that are watching?
first off, I would say get all your ducks in a row first. Make sure you get on your unemployment. Check out Brenda's new job seeker series because, you're awesome. Update your resume, LinkedIn profiles, all that stuff that you need, right? But hey, why don't you sleep in?
Right. There, start with that, right? Sleep and catch up, right?
You can catch up. You can kind of start to make a different routine for yourself and maybe give yourself a little bit of grace here and there. I always found that finding a new health and fitness routine is kind of fun. Instead of having to take the 6 a.m. classes, you can sleep in now and take the 9:15 or the 9:30 classes. So it's always kind of nice to do that. You can try new modalities, cycling, rowing, Pilates, whatever it is that you want to try. I always found that I would walk out of the door really fast in the morning and either skip breakfast or just have like a granola bar or something like that. But, make yourself a healthy breakfast and kind of find new recipes. That's kind of fun too. And that's what I saw a lot of when COVID started to bubble up was, people were sharing their food and their baking and the creativity in the kitchen. So that's a really
making bread. Everybody was making bread. Remember the bread thing for a while? It's like I made this sourdough. I'm like, and I didn't think about it, but I was like, I made a lot of banana bread, and I was like, I had bananas that went ripe, and I would make banana bread or things like that. But it's a good point. We had more time because we weren't driving and commuting, and some of us were not working at all. And we're like looking through the cupboards and going, I guess I'll bake some bread, right? Like, I don't know where that came from as a theme.
I mean, if you think about it, bread is only eggs and flour and water, right?
Okay, yeah.
So those are kind of also the cheapest things in your pantry.
Yeah, that's true.
So, cooking and discovering new recipes, maybe you're finding something exotic, but you can also do things on a budget as well. So I totally understand that, maybe some of these things in this list aren't able to happen for some of the folks watching.
You got to pick and choose. I mean, even the fitness thing, and I'll admit I'm like okay on technology. I'm not like super, super tech savvy, but I like really recently discovered on my phone the health app that's like preloaded on iPhones, you guys. And it like counts your steps, even if you don't tell it to. So if you keep your phone in your pocket and you walk around the house all day, at the end of the day, it'll tell you like how many steps you walked. And I was like, once I started looking at that, I was like, wait, I can like walk around the block, and I get my little 3-pound hand weights. It's nothing too heavy, but I walk around the block, or you can grab bottles of water in either hand if you don't have hand weights, right? And then at the end of the day, I had 1 week where I was like, every day I'm going to walk more steps than the day previous. And I did that for like 5 days. And now I'll walk like 2 to 3 times a week, even if it's just around my block, around my court. If it's a little bit colder, I'll wait till later in the day, but we don't have to pay money for that. And Monica, I have to imagine there's a lot of, you probably know, being involved in the fitness world too, there's probably a lot of online classes that are available now for free, not just the YouTube channel stuff, but there's probably other things out there for people too, right?
Yeah. And I'll plug the Edge Fitness. They have a really great collection of live fitness classes. You can catch the replays too. If you follow Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, they will send out a schedule every week. You could do body pump. You could do yoga. They have all kinds of different classes that you can take online live with a real.
Do you have to pay for those to take them online live?
No.
What? How can they do that? That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how that all works, but
well, I'm going to check that out. I'm actually going to pull them up on screen as we're talking about it, because I've been thinking I do the yoga, and I usually find it on YouTube, but I'll admit, like, if I'm doing it on YouTube and somebody calls from the other room and I'm like, what? And then I get distracted. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to finish it. But if I think if I felt like it was live and there was other people, or the person knew I wasn't participating and watching, I think there would be some accountability built in, right?
Yeah.
Is this the right site?
They'll react with you too. So you can say hi, just like you're doing here, Brenda, with comments and things like that. They'll respond to you. They'll be like, hey, Monica, how's it going? You were here on yesterday's class. Are you sore today? Yep.
That's good though, because that helps. I think that's one of the things that we miss when we are unemployed is the interaction from other human beings, because one day you're part of a team, right? And you're part of what's important, and you're sitting at the table, or you're on the conference calls and the Zoom calls. And then the next week, you're not, and you've been told over the phone or in person or walked out with a box, and you're not anymore. And now there's this like, where is my identity? And I think, I mean, when we first were talking about the show and you came back with this unenjoyment, finding what brings you joy during unemployment, I have to think that part of that is your identity is not just your job, but it's also what are the things that bring you joy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't want to take over the conversation. I know you had some notes on other things that you wanted to cover here today. So what other tips or advice or insights do you have to offer us here, Monica?
You could, let's see, what's on my list? Let's run your errands during the week instead of on the weekends where you can spend time with family and friends.
That's a good idea.
Right? You can discover new areas in town or maybe a new restaurant or something. My family was always big on day trips. Mm-hmm. So we didn't grow up with a lot of money. So taking overnight trips wasn't always feasible. So we take day trips sometimes and discover new places, new parks, shopping, whatever.
Is this something like, did you sit down and write out a list?
Yes, I did.
Just for this call, or did you do this when you had the opportunity to do it? When you're like, oh, I have more time, what can I do now? Did you do that?
I don't think I ever made a physical list for myself, but I was kind of picking when I was making the list for this talk today. I was like, okay, so what have I done? Okay, I tried new recipes. I took trips. I run my errands during the day. I worked on getting a certification and doing some personal development. So I kind of just like reviewed what I had done in the past or what I've been doing recently to compile a list. So
I love that. And I'm just going to ask our audience to join in on the conversation too. I want you guys to suggest your tips because you might be thinking of other things. As Monica's talking, I'm thinking about what memberships or subscriptions or things do I have, like the zoo. If I have a zoo membership and I haven't been able to go during the year to take my kids because work is keeping me busy, and then I get to the weekend and I'm running my errands, right? Because that's what I do on the weekends. Now I'm not working. Well, gosh, Tuesday afternoon after the kids are done with their online learning, let's go to the zoo. And we've already paid for the membership, and we can bring a picnic lunch or something with us, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a perfect idea. A perfect one. Also, doing some home improvement projects. There's a lot of things that you can do on a budget, just maybe reorganizing or redecorating. You can find lots of YouTube videos on kind of how to do that or zhuzh up your space or whatever. I'm currently in the process of updating my home office that was formerly a guest room that nobody ever slept in. So I'm repurposing the room. I'm not in it right now because the lighting is so terrible in there. So
But we staged, and before I gotta like interrupt you and just let people know, Monica, before we got on the call today, so I always have my guests come on like 10 minutes before we go live, and then we kind of talk and look at the video, and Monica was facing a window, which really looked nice in terms of the framing, but the problem is when you have a window behind you, the lighting is really sharp behind you, and then her face was much darker. And I said it would actually be better if you could angle yourself either facing toward the window, and she's like, well, then you're going to see my living room. And I'm like, well, let's move the plants. I mean, look at this behind you. You can't really tell. Now that I pointed out to you guys, you're going, oh, she's facing the other way. But the window is actually, are you facing it or you're just alongside the window now, right?
I'm alongside the window. So it's over here.
Yeah. So this is something even for people that are interviewing, it's a technique. And you can do what Monica did. She moved her plants behind her. So we really can't see. It's dark behind her. The lighting is creating that nice contrast on there. And, whether you're redecorating a home office, like Monica was saying, converting a guest room or whatnot, we got to kind of work with what we have at home. And now that you have the time, you've got a little bit of time to play with that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So organizing your home one room at a time, try not to get overwhelmed. That's one thing that I have to remember for myself is to not start so many projects that I can't finish. That happens probably more often than it should. But also, you have a chance to maybe volunteer right now if there's availability to do that in your area. I'm not sure with COVID how that works all over the place, but
sometimes it's not just volunteering in person, it might be volunteering online. And here's one thing, if maybe you have a background in HR and recruiting and you've looked at resumes a lot, maybe there are other job seekers that you could volunteer your time to help them with their resume, and, join a job seeker group and say, hey, I used to work in HR. I can give you guys a quick once over on your resume and give you some pointers. I mean, there's a way you can formally volunteer, or you can think about what gifts and talents do I have that I could donate my time for. And you don't have to meet in person to do that, right? You can do that kind of over the phone or in a Zoom or something too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can also, maybe help your neighbor tutor their kids, because I know that's a challenge for a lot of people right now, or just mentoring youth in general, maybe via Zoom calls and things like that. So, what else do I have on my list? I didn't really talk a lot about maybe finding areas to pivot in your career.
Yeah, let's go to that before, and then we're going to open it up to audience Q&A in a few minutes here. But let's talk about, how do you find, because for me, I kind of think I feel like your future career, Monica, is going to be in something fitness or health related, because I just feel like that's what I know of you and what I see inside you that lights you up, and I think you're so good at it. But what do you recommend for people? How do they find something if they've always done X and that might not be the pivot for them, where they go in the future? How do they figure that out?
So in the past, I think the time that I was unemployed back in 2018, I thought to myself, hey, I would love to learn a little bit more about the technical side of things. So I got on LinkedIn and I did some trainings on Salesforce, or I don't remember. There were a couple of
ones. Was it through LinkedIn Learning that you found those? Is that how you found those skills?
I did. Okay. Yeah. So I'm a LinkedIn Premium member, and I have access to the LinkedIn Learning. So I did a ton of those. And whether or not it's a new skill that you want to explore a little bit more, or maybe you want to get some more leadership training, because the next step for you, maybe you want to be a leader. So there's opportunities to learn a little bit more about leadership skills, or organizational skills and things like that through the LinkedIn Learning. There's also networking groups that can help you with that too. I know I tapped into Together Digital quite a few times just to have conversations with people who are in more technical roles, to kind of see what it was like, and just to explore a potential pivot in my career path. So that's always fun. And then maybe getting a certification in something. Maybe Google AdWords is something you've always wanted to do, or a PMP certification is a really valuable one, and that could help you get a nicer paycheck. I don't know. So
some of those, because they may be higher level requirements. If you want to move into a director level position, they might say MBA required, or bachelor's degree required, or PMP required, or something. There might be a requirement. Right. Well, now that you got some time, and I would say, look around too, because what I'm hearing, Monica, is some of the, I know colleges and universities in the area, and I know Oakland Community College is one where they have additional scholarships, hardship scholarships. And then there's also some programs out there that they're making available for people who have been affected by COVID, or who are healthcare workers, right? Who are maybe looking at different career paths in the future. So there's a lot of different resources and programs, but there's also scholarships and grants and things out there to look for. So a really good point on the education.
Yeah, I haven't taken a course from this company, but I've heard a lot of great things. It's called Coursera, and they do a lot of free courses. And these courses are, they're facilitated by professors from Yale and Rutgers, or some really top-notch schools.
Yeah.
And this content some of it's free, some of it you pay for, but you could take advantage of something like that too. So
yeah, that's a good point. So investigate and think about what might interest you. And, my advice is Google it, find free courses in X, right? And then it might lead you to places like LinkedIn Learning or Coursera, and you might find other places to look, but it's a way to kind of dabble and start to look for some of those things. So Monica, if it's okay, I think we're going to change gears and we're going to open this up to audience Q&A. Sure. I feel like this is already going by so fast. I looked down, I'm like, oh, it's 1:10 already. And I told Monica we usually go about 45 minutes, and I'm like, there's so much great information here. But I want to allow time for questions. Is that okay if we move into questions now?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Perfect. So I want to invite you guys to drop your questions below if you have any questions for Monica, or if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation. additional resources. Maybe you've been unemployed for a little bit and you've been thinking about different things that bring you joy while you're looking for that next move. And I want to give you guys a few minutes to drop your comments. And there's about a 30-second delay from the time I say drop a comment in, and then you have to click to type it in, and then it comes back up. And I think sometimes I've had this happen when I've been like watching a live and I drop the comment in on my phone, and then I can't find the live and I have to go back in and I'm like, where was it? So my little hack on that is if you're watching it on your desktop, like go into the thing on your phone and drop the question on your phone. And that way you won't lose the live stream. You can keep watching it and wait for your comment to come back on there. Amy Perman says she's enjoyed a membership at the Botanical Garden. That's a really great idea. Getting outside and seeing nature and beauty, right? Good point there.
Awesome.
Shauna was suggesting crafting, and Michael has some great videos. I hadn't thought about that. My daughter loves doing crafts. I should probably look them up, Monica, or Shauna. I should say thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, my grandmother was really talented in crochet, and I've been looking at this blanket that she did 30 years ago that we still use, and it's beautiful. I'm like, I wonder if I could do that.
Well, yeah, right? It's just time and effort. It's learning the craft. Amy suggested too quad meeting. Have you heard about these quad meets? Monica, have you heard about these at all?
No, not at all.
So
Curious.
The guy who created, his name's Ryan Christopher. He actually has a company called, I think it's like anything on anything. You can put like your branded logo on like a walnut or a mouse pad or a t-shirt. Like he does like branded apparel and things like that. But he created this quad meets as a way of like helping people to do more networking with people from around the world. So basically what you do, it's a quad meet. So that means there's 4 people. It's free. You go on to, I think it's quadmeets.com. Amy has it noted on there, and you select a date and time, and then you are randomly assigned to meet with 3 other people, one of which is a Quad Meets host, and then it's 2 other people, and they're from anywhere in the world. So the last time I did this, I think I had somebody from India, somebody from Washington, D.C., and there was one other country. I can't remember. It was like Philippines or something, but it was people from around the world, and it was a half-hour session, and we all kind of went around, introduced ourselves, and did a little bit of networking. And it was just, the point was just really to get to know people. And at the end, if there was time, you know, the person might say, does anybody have anything that you need help with? And then we kind of went to that. But interesting concept there, the quad meets. It's kind of a supplement to the networking. So
yeah, really.
Very cool. And Cynthia echoes what you were saying about LinkedIn Learning. And I know that you have premium. Did you say, Monica, for your LinkedIn access? And I know like with premium, you get unlimited to everything. But I think that LinkedIn is making available LinkedIn Learning. There's some courses you can watch for free, even without the premium subscription. So I would encourage people check that out. Yeah. All right. Let's see what else. Rahul is suggesting, because you were talking earlier, Monica, about volunteering. And Rahul saying many organizations need volunteers due to COVID. And I think this might tie into your idea, Monica, of like, what are you passionate about and what brings you joy? If you like pets, maybe reach out to the Humane Society and say, hey, what help do you need from volunteers? Or if you like gardening, you know, reach out to a botanical garden and say, do you need volunteers for anything, right? There's probably no end to where we can reach out to the volunteers. Very good. All right, I'm seeing some more comments that are coming in, Monica, but I want to give you a few minutes to kind of wrap up our conversation here today. And anything on your list we didn't cover, first of all, and then after that, I'll give you the opportunity, anything you'd like us to know about you or your businesses, or any final shout outs or anything you'd like to give before we wrap here today.
Let's see. I think we covered everything on my list. I hope that the ideas were really helpful for people. I hope that you kind of tap into finding what brings you joy. I know it's different for each and every one of us. So I'm excited to connect with everybody via LinkedIn. And for my Zaya business, the athleisure wear that we were talking about earlier, if you want to drop me a line and kind of do some shopping with me, I'm doing $5 gift cards for anyone who's watching on on any of our lives today. So
Oh,
get in
fun.
contact with me any way, shape, or form, and I can help you shop and put together a great outfit or pick up a couple pieces. The holidays are coming up too, so I'm getting ramped up for holiday parties and gift giving season. So there's that. We can do some Arbonne stuff too. So health and wellness products. If you're looking to get a little bit healthier, I know I just ordered some protein that, I've been using for 10 years. So I use those products to help keep me healthy. And then for anyone who is local to like the Rochester area, Southeast Michigan in general, the Rowhouse studio is opening in Rochester Hills across from Crittenton Hospital. It's in a little strip mall. And I am doing a class tonight at 7 p.m. If you want to drop me a line, I can see if there's space for anyone who wants to join that class with me and try rowing for the first time.
Awesome. And somebody did say, and I want to get out there myself too, Monica, and I will come out at some point. But I want to drop I think this is the right rowhouse.com location, Rochester Hills. And then I want to share it on screen for people. So if you are local in the area and you want to check that out, let me just make sure I got the right one. Does this look like it's the right website here?
Yes. Rowhouse? You'll want to call the studio. So our system, we're still really new. So the system isn't 100% set up yet. So you have to call the studio, or I can kind of help facilitate within the next few hours. So I'm doing the class tonight, and it's my test out. So as coaches, we go to our formal training, and then we have like a training log and hours that we have to complete, and then we have to test out so that we can officially become coaches and be on the schedule. So my test out is tonight. So
awesome. Well, I will definitely check that out, and we have it up on screen. I'll drop the link in the playback too for people to look at that. I just think this is a great conversation to have, Monica. It's so timely because there are a lot of people that are affected by COVID in terms of their employment situation, and they may be struggling with this whole concept of finding joy. And I think you gave so many useful tips on, what to do in the meantime. And we're not talking about finding a job on the session here today, but maybe we are. Maybe we're talking about finding something that brings you joy, and there might be an alternative path for you in that. And I think one thing we've been seeing in the past couple of years is so many side hustles and alternative revenue streams and things like that are popping up. And, maybe you've been to a class or a show, or you purchased something from someone and you like their products. You'll reach out to them and say, hey, how did you get into Zaya? How did you get into Arbonne? Tell me a little bit more about it, because there might be some opportunities there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you so much, Monica, for your time today. So what's next for you? What are you doing after we're done on the call here today?
I'm going to prepare for my test out. I'm going to have a little bit of lunch, and I'm going to clean my office, or kind of do a little home edit. I don't know if you've checked that show out on Netflix, The Home Edit.
I haven't. What is that?
It's a kind of an organizational show where it kind of helps you organize a part of your home. So there's a couple of steps. There's the edit part, where you take all the stuff in your room and you kind of get rid of the things that you don't want or don't need. And then you kind of start to transform it through a couple different stages. And this TV show is these two gals in, I think Nashville is where they're located. And they call their business is called The Home Edit. And that's what they do. They organize your home by, I don't know, they're masterminds at it.
Well, it sounds interesting, and I feel like I have a couple. Definitely my home office, I think, could use some reorganization. So I'm gonna probably look up that show. And I've been through so many different series on Netflix through all of this, so I like the thought of watching something that can actually be productive for my daytime stuff too. So it sounds very cool.
It's not as extreme as the Marie Kondo thing.
Okay, I was thinking of her because she's like throwing things out, right? If it doesn't bring you joy, like pitch it kind of thing, or.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to throw everything out because I love so many things, but I can find a different place to put it.
Yeah, there you go. Reorganize, right? Awesome. Well, I want to do a couple things before we wrap here today. First, I'm going to pull up your LinkedIn URL up on screen, and let me just see if I can navigate to your profile really quick, because I'm going to drop that up on screen for people as well. And while I'm pulling that up in the background here, Monica, are you open to connecting with people on LinkedIn, or what's your kind of philosophy on that? If they reach out and they invite you to connect, are you open to accepting those connections?
I'm absolutely open to accepting connections.
Awesome. And what I would recommend for you guys is if you do invite Monica to connect, take a second when you invite her to connect, that little field that says add a note and say, hey, Monica, I saw you on LinkedIn Live today. Loved your tips about unenjoyment. Like, reference something so that she knows where you're coming from. I found, like, by putting a little bit of context in there, it helps to increase the likelihood they're going to accept that invitation. And I also want to point something out on Monica's profile here, guys. Monica is not working in a professional full-time role right now. So what she's done in the meantime, you see at the top of her profile where it says Together Digital, she serves in a board leadership role, and she is listing that in the top of her experience section. So it's a little bit of a workaround of what do you put in there until you find something else. That's a workaround. If you're active in an organization, and in this case, Monica is volunteering her time in this role, it's a great way of bringing visibility to the organization, as well as using that area of your LinkedIn profile strategically to kind of show people how you're staying involved. So kudos to you, Monica, on putting that and bringing visibility to our organization for Together Digital.
Absolutely.
Very cool. And then what else? Before we leave, I want to remind you guys, if you are not already on my VIP email list, if you could please go to, I'm trying to navigate and talk and do this, go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe, where you can join my VIP email list. And I'll send you a LinkedIn strategy tip about once a week. That's it. And then I'll also send future notification about upcoming LinkedIn Live interviews with awesome people like Monica. So thank you so much for your time today, Monica. I hope you have a great class tonight, and I hope you get some additional inquiries from folks coming from the show here as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Brenda. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, Monica, for your time, and everybody for watching. Thanks again. If you haven't left a comment, please make sure to do so before you leave here today. If you enjoyed this conversation with Monica, let her know that she is awesome. I think she's awesome, and I thought this was a really productive conversation. A lot of great tips that are coming out of it. And then you could also share this video. You know, share it with somebody in your network who maybe is going through a career transition right now, who is unemployed, who is struggling with, my term was the black hole. Monica was saying they feel like they're in jail. Like, help to shake them and get them out of it. And maybe there's some tips in this video that can help to get them out of that funk. So consider sharing that video with someone in your network. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. Everybody stay safe and stay healthy. And remember to vote. We got a big thing coming up here in a couple weeks. And everybody have a great day. We'll see you online later in the week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.